She had everything money could buy, except the one thing that mattered. Standing in her penthouse office on the 47th floor, Naomi Sinclair made a decision that would destroy her carefully constructed world. She would become nobody. Erase the billion-dollar empire, the designer clothes, the name that made boardrooms fall silent. She would walk into the world stripped bare, hunting for something her wealth had never delivered. Someone who could see her, not her bank account. But when she finally found him, a broke single father with kind eyes and calloused hands, the lie she built would cost her everything she'd just discovered she needed. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this story, please hit the like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Now, let's begin. The conference room smelled like leather and desperation. Naomi Sinclair sat at the head of the table, her fingers steepled beneath her chin, watching 12 grown men squirm in their seats. The quarterly report spread before them told a story of mediocrity, dressed up in corporate jargon, and she was done pretending it was acceptable. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice cutting through the nervous shuffling of papers. "I'm looking at numbers that suggest half of you spent the last 3 months playing golf instead of doing your jobs." Richard Pemberton, her VP of Operations, cleared his throat. "Miss Sinclair, if you look at the projections—" "I'm not interested in projections, Richard. I'm interested in results." She leaned forward, her dark eyes fixed on him. "You projected 15% growth. You delivered 6. Should I be impressed by your optimism or concerned about your competence?" The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. She dismissed them with a wave of her hand, watching as they filed out like schoolchildren excused from the principal's office. When the door finally closed, Naomi exhaled and turned her chair toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 47 floors up, the world looked manageable, orderly. The people below were ants moving through predetermined paths, their lives small and contained. From up here, she was untouchable and completely alone. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Another message from Marcus Sheffield, the venture capitalist she'd been seeing for the past 2 months. Well, seeing was generous. They attended the same charity galas, shared the occasional dinner at restaurants that required reservations made 6 months in advance, and had sex that felt more like a business transaction than intimacy. Dinner Friday? The usual place. She deleted the message without responding. Naomi stood and walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cold glass. 38 years old, CEO of Sinclair Industries, a tech empire her father had built, and she'd tripled in size. Forbes had called her the most powerful woman under 40 in America. She had homes in 3 countries, a garage full of cars she never drove, and a calendar packed with obligations to people she didn't particularly like. What she didn't have was a single person who gave a damn about her. Not the woman behind the title, not the person who still cried during certain songs or who burned toast because she got distracted reading. The men who courted her wanted the CEO, the trophy, the networking opportunity. The women who called themselves her friends spent every lunch calculating how to leverage their connection to her. She'd tried, in her 20s, to find something real. But every relationship had curdled the same way, suspicion creeping in like rot, wondering if they loved her or her money, if they saw her or the dollar signs that followed her everywhere. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Grace, her assistant. "Your 3 p.m. with the Hartwell Group is confirmed. Also, your mother called. Again." Naomi closed her eyes. Her mother, Patricia Sinclair, who hadn't worked a day in her life and spent most of her time reminding Naomi that despite all her success, she'd failed at the only thing that really mattered, finding a husband and producing grandchildren. She grabbed her coat and walked out of the office without telling Grace where she was going. The elevator ride down felt like descending from one world into another. By the time she reached the lobby, the marble floors and hushed tones of corporate power gave way to the chaos of the street. Car horns, street vendors shouting, people rushing past, wrapped up in their own small emergencies. Naomi stood on the sidewalk, invisible for the first time all day. An idea began to form. It was reckless, probably stupid, and completely unlike her. But standing there, watching strangers live their ordinary lives, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. 3 days later, Naomi sat in a coffee shop she'd never visited before. wearing jeans and a sweater she'd bought at Target. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup except mascara. No jewelry except a cheap watch. She looked like any other woman grabbing coffee on a Tuesday afternoon. It was terrifying. She'd spent the past 72 hours executing a plan that would have made her board of directors think she'd lost her mind. She'd moved money into accounts under a different name, not illegal, just untraceable to Naomi Sinclair. She'd rented a modest apartment in a neighborhood where nobody knew who she was. She'd bought a whole new wardrobe from stores she'd never set foot in. And she'd created a profile on a dating app under the name Emma Clarke. Emma was a freelance graphic designer. She lived alone. She liked hiking and old movies and Thai food. Everything on the profile was technically true. Naomi did like those things, even if she hadn't had time to enjoy them in years. She'd spent 2 days swiping through profiles, amazed by how normal everyone seemed. Teachers and nurses and accountants, men who posed with dogs and children, who listed their favorite bands and made jokes about their terrible cooking skills. Then she'd found Lucas. His profile was simple. One photo of him smiling, slightly tired looking, wearing a flannel shirt. No shirtless gym selfies, no pictures on a yacht. Just a regular guy with warm brown eyes and the kind of smile that made him look like he actually meant it. Single dad, worked too much, trying to figure out this whole work-life balance thing and failing spectacularly. Love my daughter more than anything. If you're looking for fancy dinners and expensive wine, I'm not your guy. But if you want someone who'll show up and actually listen, maybe we should talk. She'd stared at that profile for 20 minutes before swiping right. They'd matched. He'd sent the first message. Hey, Emma, your profile said you like old movies. Define old. She'd smiled for the first time in days. Casablanca old, Breakfast at Tiffany's old, anything before 1980. Okay, that's legitimately old. I was worried you meant The Matrix. The Matrix is a classic. But no, I meant actually old. Black and white, men in suits, women with perfect hair. I respect that. My daughter makes me watch Disney movies on repeat. I've seen Moana probably 200 times. How old is she? 6. Her name's Mia. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Also the reason I haven't slept past 6 a.m. in 6 years. They'd messaged back and forth for 2 days. Easy conversation, nothing forced. He told her about his job managing a small hardware store, about how he was trying to teach Mia to ride a bike, about the disaster of a vegetable garden he'd attempted in his backyard. She told him about her freelance work at Jesu, kept things vague enough to be believable. She asked questions and discovered she genuinely wanted to know the answers. When he finally asked if she wanted to meet for coffee, she'd said yes before she could overthink it. Now, sitting in this ordinary coffee shop, Naomi felt her heart hammering in her chest. What if he recognized her? What if he Googled her name? What if this was the stupidest thing she'd ever done? The bell above the door chimed. She looked up. Lucas Grant walked in, and the first thing she noticed was that he looked tired. Not in a rough night kind of way, but in a life is kicking my ass kind of way. He wore jeans and a navy blue Henley, his hair slightly messy like he'd run his hand through it a few too many times. Their eyes met. He smiled, genuine relief crossing his face, and walked over. Emma? Lucas? She stood, suddenly aware of how tall he was. 6'1", maybe. Broad shoulders. The kind of build that came from actual work, not a gym membership. I'm so sorry I'm late. He ran his hand through his hair, confirming her earlier suspicion. Mia's school called right as I was leaving. She convinced another kid to trade lunches, and apparently the other kid is allergic to peanuts, and nobody thought to mention this before today's chaos. Is she okay? Naomi asked. Yeah, the other kid's fine. Mia's in the principal's office, feeling very sorry for herself. Her grandmother's handling it. He exhaled. This is a terrible first impression. Hi, I'm Lucas. I'm normally more put together than this. You're fine. Naomi found herself smiling. I was starting to think you stood me up. Never. He gestured to the counter. Can I buy you a coffee? It's literally the least I can do after making you wait. They ordered. She got a latte. He got black coffee. And found a table by the window. The afternoon sun slanted through the glass, making everything feel warmer than it was. Lucas wrapped his hands around his cup and looked at her with those tired, kind eyes. So, Emma, the graphic designer who likes old movies and Thai food. Tell me something that's not on your profile. Like what? I don't know. Something real, something you wouldn't tell a stranger. He paused. Which is ironic, since we basically are strangers, but I'm trying here. Naomi considered lying, keeping up the carefully constructed persona. Instead, she surprised herself. I burnt toast this morning because I got distracted reading an article about bees. I've burned toast at least twice a week for the past year for the same reason. I get distracted easily. His face lit up. Bees? They're fascinating. Did you know they can recognize human faces? I did not know that. He leaned back, that tired smile widening into something easier. Okay, your turn. Ask me something. Why did you swipe right on me? The question came out more vulnerable than she'd intended. Lucas seemed to notice. He didn't answer immediately, just looked at her with an honesty that made her chest tight. Because you seemed like someone who might actually give a damn, he said finally. Most of the profiles I see are people performing. Everything's perfect and polished and completely fake. Yours felt, I don't know, honest. The irony nearly made her laugh. Instead, she took a sip of her latte and asked, What made you decide to try dating again? My daughter asked me why I was always sad. The words hung between them. She's 6, Lucas continued, his voice quieter now. 6-year-olds shouldn't have to worry about whether their dad is sad, but she's perceptive as hell, notices everything. He stared into his coffee. Her mom left when she was 2, just decided motherhood wasn't for her, and walked out. I've spent the past 4 years trying to be enough for both of us. Lately, I've been wondering if maybe I'm teaching her that being alone is normal. You're not alone. You have her. Yeah. He looked up. But she deserves to see what healthy looks like, what partnership looks like. I can't teach her that if I'm just surviving day to day. Naomi felt something crack open inside her chest. That's a lot to carry. Welcome to single parenthood. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Sorry, I didn't mean to dump all that on you 5 minutes into meeting. I'm usually better at first dates. How many have you been on? Including this one? He pretended to count. 1. She laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle she used in boardrooms. Then I'd say you're doing fine. They talked for 2 hours. Lucas told her about Mia's obsession with dinosaurs, about the 45-minute bedtime routine that involved 3 stories and a comprehensive review of the day's events. He told her about his job, how he'd started as a stock clerk at 19 and worked his way up to manager, how he liked it because it was simple and honest. People needed tools. He helped them find tools. Everyone went home happy. Naomi told him about her freelance work, spinning stories that were carefully calibrated to be boring enough not to invite questions. She told him about the apartment she'd just moved into, about trying to figure out the neighborhood. Where'd you move from? He asked. Uptown. True. Needed a change. Also true. I get that. Sometimes you need to blow up your life a little to remember what's important. She wondered if he knew how perfectly he'd just described what she was doing. When they finally left the coffee shop, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that made the ordinary street look almost beautiful. Lucas walked her to her car, the used Honda Civic she'd bought for cash, another piece of her disguise. So, he said, shoving his hands in his pockets, I know I was late, and I definitely talked too much about my kid, but I had a really good time. Me too. Would you want to do this again? Maybe dinner? Fair warning, my budget doesn't really accommodate anywhere fancy. I don't need fancy, Naomi said, and meant it. Yeah? His smile was hopeful in a way that made her heart hurt. How about Friday? There's this taco place near my house. Nothing special, but the food's good and it's cheap. Sounds perfect. He pulled out his phone. Can I get your number? The app's great, but I'd rather just text like a normal person. She recited the number to the prepaid phone she'd bought specifically for this. Another layer of protection. Another lie. As she drove back to her new apartment, the modest 1-bedroom with the leaky faucet, and the neighbor who played loud music, Naomi felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or possibly just the terror of realizing she'd just committed to going deeper into a deception that could only end badly. Friday came faster than she expected. Naomi spent the day working remotely. She'd told her assistant she needed a week to handle personal business, which had sent Grace into a mild panic. But Grace was good at her job. She'd handle things. At 6 o'clock, Naomi checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Jeans, a simple blue top, minimal makeup, hair down. She looked normal, ordinary, like someone who might actually belong in Lucas Grant's life. Her phone buzzed. Running 10 minutes late. Mia decided her shoes were possessed by ghosts and refused to put them on. My mother is handling the exorcism. See you soon. She smiled and texted back. Take your time. I'll save you a table. The taco place was exactly what he described. A small family-run restaurant with plastic chairs and fluorescent lighting that flickered occasionally. The smell of cilantro and lime and grilling meat made her stomach growl. She realized she'd barely eaten all day. She chose a table by the window and waited. Lucas arrived 12 minutes late, looking harried and apologetic. I'm so sorry. I swear I'm not always late. This week has just been... It's fine. She stood. Really? Sit down. Breathe. He sat, exhaling hard. My mother thinks I'm sabotaging myself. She says I need to be more organized. Is she right? Probably. But in my defense, how do you prepare for ghost-possessed shoes? There's no parenting book for that. They ordered, she got fish tacos, he got carnitas, and fell into conversation as easily as they had at the coffee shop. Lucas seemed more relaxed tonight, the week's stress melting away as they talked. Tell me about your family, Naomi said, genuinely curious. Not much to tell. My mom raised me by herself after my dad left. She's the toughest person I know. Works as a nurse, helps me with Mia, refuses to slow down even though she's pushing 65. He smiled. What about you? Naomi hesitated. Her real family was complicated. A controlling father who died 5 years ago, a mother who measured her worth in social standing, a brother she hadn't spoken to in 3 years after he'd tried to stage a corporate coup. Small family, she said carefully. Not very close, it's mostly just me. That must be lonely. The word hit harder than it should have. Sometimes, she admitted. Their food arrived and they ate while swapping stories. He told her about the time Mia had tried to give their cat a bath and flooded the bathroom. She told him about burning an entire pot of pasta because she'd gotten absorbed in a documentary about ancient Rome. You really do get distracted easily, he observed. I have the attention span of a goldfish. It's a problem. It's kind of endearing, actually. She felt her cheeks heat. When was the last time someone had called anything about her endearing? After dinner, Lucas walked her to her car again. The night air was cool, and she could see her breath in the glow of the streetlights. So, he said, I'm going to take a risk here. Okay? Mia and I are going to the park tomorrow, just hanging out, flying a kite if the weather holds. Would you want to come? No pressure. I know meeting the kid is usually a third or fourth date thing. But she's a huge part of my life, and I'd like you to meet her, if you're interested. Naomi's brain screamed warnings. This was getting too deep, too fast. She should pump the brakes, keep her distance, protect herself from the inevitable disaster this would become. Instead, she heard herself say, I'd love to. His entire face transformed. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll text you the details. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her cheek, quick and sweet and completely unexpected. Good night, Emma. Good night, Lucas. She sat in her car for 5 full minutes after he left, her hand pressed to her cheek where his lips had been, wondering what the hell she was doing. The park was crowded with families when Naomi arrived Saturday afternoon. Kids screamed on the playground, couples walked dogs, teenagers loitered by the basketball courts. It was aggressively normal, and she felt completely out of place. She spotted Lucas by the oak tree near the pond, and next to him, holding his hand, was a little girl with dark curls and the same warm brown eyes as her father. Mia. Naomi's heart did something complicated in her chest. Lucas saw her and waved. Mia looked up, curious. Emma, Lucas called. Over here. She walked over, suddenly nervous in a way she hadn't been nervous in years. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but meeting this 6-year-old felt monumentally important. Mia, this is my friend Emma, Lucas said, squeezing his daughter's hand. Emma, this is Mia. Hi, Mia said shyly. Hi. Naomi crouched down to Mia's level. Your dad tells me you're really good at flying kites. I'm okay. Daddy usually has to help. Mia glanced at her father, then back at Naomi. Do you like dinosaurs? I do, actually. Do you have a favorite? Velociraptor. They're the smartest. Good choice. I like pterodactyls. Mia wrinkled her nose. Those aren't technically dinosaurs. They're flying reptiles. Lucas laughed. I tried to tell her she's too smart for her own good. They spent the afternoon in the park. Lucas did most of the kite flying while Mia provided enthusiastic commentary and Naomi watched, feeling something warm and unfamiliar settle in her chest. At one point, Mia ran over and grabbed Naomi's hand. Come on, Daddy says you can help. Naomi let herself be dragged over to where Lucas was untangling kite string, and suddenly she was standing too close to him, their hands brushing as they worked on the knots, Mia dancing around them with uncontainable energy. You're good with her, Lucas said quietly. She makes it easy. Most people get weird around kids, like they're afraid they'll break them or something. She seems pretty sturdy to me. He laughed, and the sound made something in Naomi's chest expand. They flew the kite. They bought ice cream from a vendor. They sat on a blanket while Mia chased pigeons, and Lucas told Naomi about the disaster of trying to teach his daughter to ride a bike. She's fearless about everything except falling, he said, which is, the main risk of bike riding. Maybe she just needs more time. Maybe. Or maybe I'm a terrible teacher. He glanced at her. Thanks for coming today. I know this probably wasn't how you planned to spend your Saturday. I can't remember the last time I spent a Saturday this well. It was true, she couldn't. All her Saturdays blurred together. Charity brunches, gallery openings, dinners with people she didn't like. This, sitting on a blanket in the grass, watching a 6-year-old chase birds, felt more real than anything she'd done in years. When Mia finally wore herself out, she climbed into Lucas's lap and promptly fell asleep against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, and Naomi watched the casual tenderness of it, the way he pressed a kiss to the top of her head without even thinking about it. She's beautiful, Naomi said softly. She's everything. His voice was thick. Some days I have no idea what I'm doing, but she makes it worth it. All of it. You're doing better than you think. I hope so. He looked at Naomi over his daughter's sleeping head. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you say yes to coffee with me? I've been wondering. Naomi considered the question. The real answer was too complicated, too wrapped up in loneliness and desperation and the exhausting weight of being Naomi Sinclair. So she gave him a different truth. Because you seemed real, like you might actually mean what you said. I do, he said. I'm too tired to pretend anymore. She understood that better than he knew. They left the park as the sun was setting. Lucas carried Mia to his car, an old SUV with a car seat in the back and evidence of a child's chaos everywhere. He buckled her in carefully, brushing hair from her face. So, he said, closing the car door gently, I'm probably moving too fast, but I really like you, Emma. And I think Mia does too, which is rare. She usually doesn't warm up to people this quickly. I really like you too, Naomi said. Yeah? He stepped closer, and suddenly they were standing toe-to-toe in the parking lot, the last rays of sunlight painting everything gold. Yeah. He kissed her. It wasn't like the polished, performative kisses she was used to. It was hesitant and sweet and tasted like the chocolate ice cream they'd shared. His hand came up to cup her face, gentle, like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, Naomi felt dizzy. Wow, Lucas breathed. Yeah. Can I see you again? Soon? Definitely. He grinned, and she realized she was in serious trouble. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Naomi split her time between two lives. During the day, she was still Naomi Sinclair, handling emergencies remotely, taking video calls with her senior team, making decisions that affected thousands of employees. But Grace was running interference beautifully, and most people seemed content to let her have her personal time. In the evenings and on weekends, she was Emma Clarke. She met Lucas for coffee, for walks, for dinners at cheap restaurants where they split the bill. She helped Mia with her dinosaur homework project. She learned to make spaghetti in Lucas's tiny kitchen while he told her stories about his day. She felt herself falling and she didn't know how to stop. One night, sitting on Lucas's worn couch while Mia slept in the next room, he turned to her with a serious expression. "I need to tell you something," he said. Naomi's heart stopped. He knew. Somehow he'd figured it out. "Okay, but I'm falling for you." He said it simply, like he was stating a fact. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been seeing each other for a few weeks. But I think about you constantly. You make everything better, and I need you to know that." Relief and guilt crashed through her in equal measure. "Lucas, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." He reached for her hand. "I haven't felt like this since Mia's mom, and that ended so badly I convinced myself I'd never risk it again. But you're different. You see me, not what I can do for you or what I have to offer, just me." The irony was suffocating. "I'm falling for you too," she said, and it was the most honest thing she'd told him. He kissed her then, deep and slow, and she let herself sink into it, pushing away the voice in her head screaming that this was all built on sand. Later that night, lying in her modest apartment, Naomi stared at the ceiling and wondered how she'd gotten here. She'd wanted to be seen for who she really was. But Emma Clarke wasn't real. She was a construct, a fantasy, a carefully edited version of Naomi Sinclair with all the complicated parts removed. And Lucas was falling in love with someone who didn't exist. Her phone buzzed, a text from Grace. "The Hartford merger is moving faster than expected. They want to meet next week. I can stall them, but not indefinitely." Reality creeping back in. Naomi closed her eyes and made a decision she knew she'd regret. She typed back, "Tell them I need 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks in this life. 2 more weeks of being Emma. 2 more weeks before she had to figure out how to confess that everything Lucas thought he knew about her was a lie. 2 more weeks before her entire world came crashing down." She fell asleep with her phone in her hand, dreaming of park benches and chocolate ice cream and a little girl who'd asked her if pterodactyls were really dinosaurs. And when she woke up, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd already waited too long to tell the truth. The lie became easier to live the longer she told it. Naomi found herself inventing details about Emma Clarke's life without even thinking. A college roommate who'd moved to Portland, a favorite coffee shop that had closed down, childhood memories that were half true and half fabricated. The stories flowed so naturally now that sometimes she almost believed them herself. Almost. It was a Thursday evening when things started to shift. Lucas had invited her over for dinner. Nothing fancy, he'd said. Just spaghetti and whatever vegetables he could find in his fridge that hadn't gone bad. Mia had insisted on helping cook, which apparently meant standing on a stool and narrating every single step like she was hosting a cooking show. "And now we add the garlic," Mia announced dramatically, dropping 3 cloves into the pan with the enthusiasm of a game show host revealing a prize. "Easy there, chef," Lucas said, laughing. "We're feeding 3 people, not an army." Naomi stood at the counter, chopping tomatoes with a knife that had definitely seen better days. The kitchen was small and cluttered, magnetic letters spelling random words on the fridge, drawings taped to every available surface, a dish towel with a stain that wouldn't come out no matter how many times it got washed. It was chaotic and imperfect, and nothing like the sterile granite and stainless steel kitchens she was used to. She loved it. "Emma, do you know how to make the water boil faster?" Mia asked, peering into the pot with scientific curiosity. "I don't think there's a way to make it go faster, sweetheart." "Daddy says a watched pot never boils." "Your daddy's right. But we're watching it, and it's boiling," Mia pointed out with irrefutable 6-year-old logic. Lucas caught Naomi's eye and grinned. "She's got you there." They ate at the small kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that Lucas kept meaning to fix. Mia talked nonstop about her day. Something about a boy named Connor who'd eaten paste during art class, and how her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had made everyone write apology letters to the class hamster because someone had given it too many treats. Why did the hamster need apology letters? Naomi asked. Because Mr. Whiskers got a tummy ache and it made him sad. That's very considerate of Mrs. Patterson. She's nice, but she talks really loud, Mia said thoughtfully. Louder than she needs to. Lucas nearly choked on his water. Mia, we don't... It's true, though, Mia insisted. Connor said so, too. After dinner, Mia begged to show Naomi her room. Lucas shot her an apologetic look. You don't have to. She'll understand. But Naomi followed the little girl down the narrow hallway anyway. Mia's room was an explosion of color. Dinosaur posters covered one wall, a shelf overflowed with books, and stuffed animals were piled so high on the bed it was hard to imagine how anyone slept there. In the corner sat a small desk with a lamp shaped like a triceratops. This is where I do homework, Mia explained, climbing onto her chair, and this is my rock collection. She pointed to a shoebox filled with what appeared to be ordinary rocks from the backyard. Daddy says they're just rocks, but I think some of them might be fossils. They might be, Naomi said seriously. You never know. Mia pulled out a smooth gray stone. This one's my favorite. I found it at the park, the same park where we flew the kite with you. It's a good rock. Do you want it? Naomi blinked. What? You can have it if you want. Mia held it out with the casual generosity of a child who hadn't yet learned that possessions were supposed to be hoarded. For good luck. Something in Naomi's chest cracked open. She took the rock carefully, like it was something precious. Thank you, Mia. I'll keep it somewhere safe. You have to make a wish on it first. That's the rules. What should I wish for? Mia considered this seriously. Something important. Not like candy or toys. Something that matters. Naomi closed her fingers around the rock and closed her eyes. She wished for something impossible. That she could stay in this moment forever, in this messy room with this sweet kid who barely knew her. That she could be Emma Clarke for real. That the lie wouldn't eventually destroy everything. When she opened her eyes, Mia was smiling at her. Did you wish? I did. Good. Now it'll come true. Lucas appeared in the doorway. All right, kiddo, time for your bath. Say goodnight to Emma. Mia threw her arms around Naomi's waist in a sudden, fierce hug. Good night, Emma. I'm glad Daddy found you. Naomi hugged her back, fighting the burning in her throat. Me too, sweetheart. After Mia disappeared into the bathroom, Lucas walked Naomi to the door. The sounds of running water and Mia's off-key singing drifted down the hall. Sorry about the chaos, he said, leaning against the door frame. I know it's a lot. It's not. She really likes you. She doesn't usually warm up to people this fast. She's easy to like. Lucas stepped closer, and Naomi could smell the garlic from dinner still clinging to his shirt, could see the tired lines around his eyes that never quite went away. He cupped her face in his hands, and his palms were warm and rough with old calluses. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Her heart stuttered. Okay. I'm not good at this. Dating, I mean. I'm out of practice and I'm always tired, and half the time I forget to text back because Mia needs something or work's on fire. But I want to be good at this. With you. He brushed his thumb across her cheek. I want you to know that you matter, that this matters. She should tell him, right now. She should confess everything. Who she really was, what she'd done, the empire she'd left behind to play house with him. But the words stuck in her throat, trapped behind the fear of watching his expression change from tenderness to betrayal. Instead, she kissed him, pouring all her guilt and longing into it. And when he pulled her closer, she let herself pretend for just a little longer that Emma Clarke was real. The following week dissolved into a routine that felt dangerously comfortable. Lucas would text her in the mornings, usually something about Mia's latest crisis or a funny thing that happened at work. She'd meet him for lunch when she could, sitting in his truck outside the hardware store eating sandwiches from the deli down the street. On Saturday, she helped Mia practice for her school's dinosaur presentation, sitting on the floor of the living room while the little girl explained in exhaustive detail why the Jurassic period was superior to the Cretaceous. The Cretaceous had T-Rex, Lucas pointed out from the couch. T-Rex is overrated, Mia declared with the confidence of someone who'd clearly given this considerable thought. Everybody likes T-Rex. I like Stegosaurus. They had plates, and they were herbivores, which means they didn't eat other dinosaurs, which is nicer. Can't argue with that logic, Naomi said. Lucas caught her eye over Mia's head and mouthed, "She's been like this for 3 days." Naomi had to bite back a laugh. But it wasn't all easy. There were moments when the double life caught up to her, when Grace called with an emergency that required her to lock herself in her apartment's bathroom and make decisions about personnel changes, while Lucas and Mia waited for her to come back from what she'd claimed was a phone call from a difficult client. There were nights when she lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her modest apartment, thinking about the penthouse sitting empty across town, about the board meetings she was missing, about the questions that would eventually come if she stayed away much longer. She told Grace she needed a month. That month was almost up. One evening, 2 weeks into what Naomi had started thinking of as her borrowed life, Lucas asked her to stay for dinner after Mia went to bed. They sat on his back porch, if you could call it a porch. Really, it was just a small concrete slab with 2 folding chairs, drinking cheap beer and watching fireflies blink in the overgrown yard. "Tell me something about yourself I don't know," Lucas said. Naomi tensed. "Like what?" "I don't know. Something from before. Your family, maybe. You never talk about them." She took a long drink of her beer, buying time. "There's not much to tell. My dad died a few years ago. My mom and I aren't close. I have a brother I don't speak to anymore." "What happened? With your brother?" "We had different ideas about what family meant. He thought it meant using people. I disagreed. All technically true, just missing about $1 billion worth of context." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "My dad left when I was 12. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mom worked double shifts to keep us afloat. I used to resent the hell out of him for that." "Used to?" "Now I mostly feel sorry for him. He missed everything. Watching me grow up, meeting Mia. He chose to walk away from that." Lucas stared at his beer bottle. "When Mia's mom left, I understood him a little better. How you could look at your life and feel so overwhelmed you convince yourself everyone would be better off without you." He paused. "I never would have left, but I understood the impulse." "You're nothing like him, DM," Naomi said firmly. "How do you know?" "Because you're here. You stayed. That's everything." He looked at her then, and the vulnerability in his expression made her chest ache. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough. For Mia, I mean. She deserves more than a tired dad who can barely keep up with laundry and burns dinner half the time. She deserves you exactly as you are." "You think?" "I know." And she meant it. Watching Lucas with Mia had taught her something she'd never learned in all her years running a company, that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up day after day, even when you were exhausted and overwhelmed and convinced you were doing everything wrong. Lucas reached over and laced his fingers through hers. They sat like that in comfortable silence, listening to crickets and distant traffic, and Naomi tried to memorize the feeling of his hand in hers because she knew it wouldn't last. The next morning, Grace called. "We have a problem," her assistant said without preamble. Naomi stepped out onto her apartment's small balcony, closing the door behind her. "What kind of problem?" "Richard Pemberton is making noise about a vote of no confidence. He's been talking to board members, suggesting that your absence indicates instability in leadership." Of course he was. Richard had been angling for her job since the day she'd promoted him to VP. "How many board members is he talking to?" "At least 4 that I know of, maybe more." Naomi closed her eyes. "Set up a video call with the full board for Monday morning. I'll handle Richard." "Are you coming back?" The question hung in the air. "Not yet," Naomi said, "but I need you to make it clear that I'm still running this company. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." "Understood." Grace paused. "Are you okay? You sound different." "I'm fine." "You're lying." Grace had been with her for 8 years. She'd earned the right to call bullshit. "I'm figuring some things out," Naomi said carefully. "Does it involve the reason you've been buying coffee from a place that doesn't have your name on the cup?" She'd gotten sloppy. Grace had obviously been monitoring her credit cards. Maybe. Good. You needed to figure some things out. Her assistant's voice softened. Just don't forget who you are while you're doing it. After they hung up, Naomi stood on the balcony for a long time, staring at nothing. Who she was. That was the problem, wasn't it? She'd spent so long being Naomi Sinclair, the CEO, the empire builder, the woman who ate incompetent executives for breakfast, that she'd forgotten there might be someone else underneath. Someone who burned toast and laughed at 6-year-old logic and felt butterflies when a tired single dad held her hand. She was starting to like that person better. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucas. Mia wants to know if you can come to her school thing on Friday. It's the dinosaur presentation. No pressure, but she's been practicing her speech on everyone, including the mailman. Naomi smiled despite everything. I'll be there. Friday afternoon found her sitting in a too-small chair in an elementary school cafeteria that smelled like industrial cleaner and chicken nuggets. Lucas sat beside her, his knee bouncing nervously. She's been up since 5 a.m. going over her notes, he whispered. I've heard this presentation so many times I could give it myself. She'll be great. I know. I'm still nervous. The presentation started. Connor, the kid who'd eaten paste, went first with a rambling explanation of velociraptors that was about 60% accurate and 40% what he'd clearly seen in Jurassic Park. Another girl talked about pterodactyls and incorrectly called them dinosaurs. Naomi thought about Mia's earlier correction and smiled. Then it was Mia's turn. She walked to the front of the cafeteria wearing a t-shirt with a stegosaurus on it and carrying a poster board that was almost bigger than she was. For a moment she looked terrified, scanning the crowd until she found Lucas. Her face relaxed when she saw him. Then she saw Naomi sitting beside him, and her entire face lit up. My presentation is about Stegosaurus, Mia began, her voice small but steady. A lot of people think T-Rex is the best dinosaur, but they're wrong, because Stegosaurus had armor plates and a thagomizer, which is the spiky tail, and they were peaceful herbivores. She went through her facts carefully, occasionally glancing at her poster for reference. She talked about the Jurassic period, about fossils, about how scientists used to think the plates were for protection, but now they think they might have been for temperature regulation. And that's important because it shows that we can be wrong about things and then learn new information and change our minds, Mia concluded, which my teacher says is what science is about. Thank you for listening. The cafeteria erupted in applause. Mia beamed, and when she came back to sit with them, Lucas pulled her into a fierce hug. You were perfect, baby girl. I remembered everything. You did. He kissed the top of her head. I'm so proud of you. Mia turned to Naomi. Did I do good? You were amazing. Best presentation I've ever seen. Better than Connor's? Way better than Connor's. Lucas caught Naomi's eye over Mia's head, and the look he gave her was so full of gratitude and something deeper that Naomi had to look away. After the presentations ended, they walked to the parking lot together. Other parents milled around, collecting their kids, making plans for weekend playdates. Naomi noticed a few of them looking at her curiously. The stranger who'd shown up with Lucas Grant and his daughter. Ice cream? Lucas suggested. I think someone earned it. Yes! Mia pumped her fist in the air. They went to a place near the park, the kind with picnic tables outside and 50 flavors that all somehow tasted vaguely the same. Mia got chocolate chip cookie dough. Lucas got vanilla because he was boring, according to his daughter. Naomi got strawberry. They sat at a picnic table in the late afternoon sun, and Mia rattled off facts about various dinosaurs with the confidence of a museum curator. A bee landed on the table, and Naomi watched it carefully. Did you know bees can recognize human faces? She said. Lucas laughed. You and those bee facts. They're interesting. She's right, Mia said loyally. Bees are important for pollinating flowers. We learned about it in science. See? Naomi grinned at Lucas. Mia gets it. I'm outnumbered by bee enthusiasts. This is my life now. Watching him smile, watching Mia swing her legs and get ice cream on her nose, Naomi felt the weight of what she was doing settle heavier on her shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't just about finding someone who saw her for who she really was. She'd inserted herself into their lives, into Mia's life, And when the truth came out, it wouldn't just hurt Lucas. It would hurt this sweet, smart little girl who'd given her a rock for good luck. "You okay?" Lucas asked quietly. She realized she'd been staring at nothing. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "Everything. The board meeting on Monday, Richard Pemberton plotting against her, the life she'd left on pause, the lie that was growing bigger every day." "About how good this ice cream is," she said instead. That night, after Lucas dropped her off at her apartment with a kiss that lingered longer than it should have, Naomi sat on her couch and stared at her laptop. She had 27 unread emails from senior executives, a dozen flagged items from Grace, and a text from her mother asking when she planned to stop playing around with this sabbatical nonsense and return to her responsibilities. She ignored all of it and pulled up the photos on her phone instead. There was one from today. Lucas had taken it while she and Mia were comparing the merits of different ice cream flavors. Naomi was laughing at something Mia had said, her head thrown back, completely unguarded. She looked happy. She looked real. She looked like someone she didn't recognize. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. "Miss Sinclair?" Richard Pemberton's voice was smooth and smug. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Her entire body went rigid. "How did you get this number?" "I have my resources. We need to talk about Monday's board meeting." "There's nothing to discuss." "Richard, I'll be there." "Will you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you've checked out. A month away from the office with no clear explanation. Declining to participate in the Hartford merger negotiations, refusing to address concerns about leadership stability." He paused. "The board deserves better." "The board will get exactly what I choose to give them, which is more than you could ever deliver." "That's your ego talking, and it's exactly why this company needs new leadership." His voice hardened. "I've been patient. I've watched you treat this company like your personal playground for years, but you don't get to abandon ship and expect everyone to wait around for you to remember you have responsibilities." "Is that a threat, Richard?" "It's a reality check. Monday morning, I'm calling for a vote of no confidence, unless you want to make this easy and step down voluntarily." Naomi felt the old instincts kick in, the cold calculation, the strategic mind that had built an empire. Richard wasn't bluffing. He had the votes, or thought he did. He'd been working behind the scenes, building alliances, positioning himself as the stable alternative to her erratic behavior. "See you Monday," she said, and hung up. She sat in the dark apartment, feeling the two halves of her life pulling in opposite directions. She could show up Monday and destroy Richard Pemberton so thoroughly he'd never work in tech again. She could remind the board exactly why she was the CEO and they were not. She could reclaim her empire and bury this brief, stupid fantasy of being Emma Clarke, or she could let it go. The thought was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Lucas. "Mia wanted me to tell you that you're officially invited to her birthday party next month. Fair warning, it's going to be extremely dinosaur-themed. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm falling in love with you. Okay, good night." Naomi read the message 3 times, her heart hammering in her chest. She should tell him the truth. Tomorrow. She should come clean about everything, the money, the company, the lies she'd built this relationship on. She should give him the choice to walk away before either of them got in any deeper. Instead, she typed back, "Tell Mia I wouldn't miss it for anything." And Lucas? "Me too." She hit send before she could think better of it. Sunday night, she sat in her real apartment, the penthouse she'd been avoiding for a month. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Sterile. Perfect. Empty. She'd come here to prepare for Monday's meeting, to put on the armor of Naomi Sinclair and remind herself who she really was. Instead, she found herself standing at the window, looking down at the city from 47 floors up, feeling more alone than she had in years. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter, full of texts from Lucas. Pictures of Mia making pancakes, a joke about a customer at the hardware store, a question about whether she wanted to come over for dinner Tuesday night. Simple things. Normal things. The kind of things that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or hostile board members or the weight of running a billion-dollar empire. She picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages, and something inside her chest cracked clean open. She couldn't do both. She couldn't be Naomi Sinclair and Emma Clarke. Eventually, she'd have to choose the life she'd built or the life she was beginning to want. Monday morning came too fast. She put on the clothes she hadn't worn in a month. Designer suit, heels that could double as weapons, the watch that cost more than Lucas probably made in 6 months. She pulled her hair back into the severe bun she'd always worn to board meetings. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. The video call started at 9 sharp. 15 faces filled her screen. The board members who technically had the power to remove her, but who had never quite found the courage. Until now. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying the authority she'd spent years cultivating. "I understand we have some concerns to address." Richard leaned forward, his expression carefully neutral. "We're glad you could join us, Naomi. Given your extended absence, some of us have been questioning whether you remain committed to your role as CEO. My commitment has never wavered. Then perhaps you'd like to explain where you've been for the past month, while the rest of us have been working to keep this company running." She could crush him, right now. She had information on his failures, his mistakes, the accounts he'd mismanaged. She could systematically dismantle every argument he'd make and leave him humiliated in front of the entire board. But something stopped her. "I've been taking care of personal matters," she said instead. "Which, unless I'm mistaken, I'm entitled to do. Not when those personal matters jeopardize the company's stability. The company is fine. Better than fine. Revenue is up, our product launches have been successful, and we're positioned perfectly for the Hartford merger." "A merger you've refused to personally negotiate," Richard shot back, "because I have a team of competent executives who can handle it. Or are you suggesting you're not competent, Richard?" A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Richard's jaw tightened. "I'm suggesting that a CEO who can't be bothered to show up for critical negotiations isn't a CEO this company can rely on." "Then call your vote," Naomi said calmly. "Let's see how much support you actually have." The room went silent. Richard hadn't expected her to call his bluff. "All those in favor of a vote of no confidence in CEO Naomi Sinclair," he said finally. 3 hands went up. Richard's and 2 others she'd expected. "All opposed." 10 hands, 2 abstentions. Richard's face went carefully blank. He'd lost, and he knew it. "Then I suppose we're done here," Naomi said. "Unless anyone else has concerns they'd like to address?" Silence. "Good. Richard, I'll see you in my office in 10 minutes. The rest of you, thank you for your time." She ended the call before anyone could respond. Her phone rang immediately. "Grace." "You destroyed him," her assistant said with undisguised satisfaction. "That was beautiful. Schedule a one-on-one with Richard for tomorrow morning. I'm going to give him exactly 1 opportunity to explain himself before I fire him. Consider it done. Are you coming back to the office?" Naomi looked around the penthouse at the life she'd left behind. "Not yet. Naomi, I need a few more days. Can you handle things?" Grace sighed. "I can handle things. But whatever you're doing, whatever you're working through, you need to figure it out soon, because you can't keep living in 2 worlds forever." She was right. Naomi knew she was right. After they hung up, she changed out of the suit and back into Emma Clarke's clothes, jeans and a sweater that had cost $30 instead of $3,000. She drove across town to the modest apartment, to the life that felt more real than anything she'd ever built. Lucas was waiting on her doorstep with takeout and a worried expression. "Hey," he said. "You okay? You sounded weird on the phone earlier." "I'm fine, just a rough day." "Want to talk about it?" She wanted to tell him everything. Instead, she kissed him and said, "Not really. Can we just eat and watch something mindless?" They ate Thai food on her couch and watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures. Lucas fell asleep halfway through, his head on her shoulder, and Naomi sat very still, listening to him breathe, memorizing the weight of him beside her. Because she knew, with the kind of certainty that made her nauseous, that this couldn't last. Tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that, the truth would come out. Lucas would discover who she really was, and everything they'd built would shatter, and she had no idea how to stop it. She woke up to Lucas's phone ringing at 6 a.m. He fumbled for it in the dark, his voice rough with sleep. "Hello, Mom, slow down. What's wrong?" Naomi sat up, suddenly alert. Lucas swung his legs out of bed, running his hand through his hair. Is she okay? Did you call the doctor? A pause. Yeah, I'll be there in 20 minutes. No, it's fine. I'm leaving now. He hung up and was already pulling on his jeans before Naomi could ask what happened. Mia's sick, high fever, throwing up. My mom's freaking out. He grabbed his shirt from the floor. I'm sorry. I have to go. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I want to. They drove through empty streets, the city still dark and quiet. Lucas's hands were tight on the wheel, his jaw clenched. Naomi reached over and squeezed his knee. She'll be okay. Kids get fevers. I know, I just hate when she's sick. She gets so miserable and there's nothing I can do except give her medicine and wait. When they got to his house, his mother met them at the door. Margaret Grant was a small woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that took in everything. She looked at Naomi with undisguised curiosity but didn't say anything. She's in her room, Margaret said. Fever's at 102. I gave her some children's Tylenol about an hour ago, but it hasn't kicked in yet. Lucas headed straight for Mia's room. Naomi hesitated in the doorway, unsure if she should follow, but Margaret gestured her inside. Mia was curled up in bed, her face flushed and sweaty. She looked smaller than usual, fragile in a way that made Naomi's chest hurt. Hey, baby girl, Lucas said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. I heard you're not feeling good. My tummy hurts me, Mia whimpered. And my head. I know, sweetheart. The medicine will help soon. He brushed damp hair from her forehead. Think you can drink some water for me? Mia shook her head weakly. Just a little bit, please. She took a tiny sip from the cup Lucas held for her, then turned her face into the pillow. Her eyes found Naomi standing by the door. Emma came too? She wanted to make sure you were okay, Lucas said. Mia reached out a hand. Can you stay? Naomi crossed the room and took her small, hot hand. Of course I can stay. They spent the next hour in a rotation of checking temperatures, offering water, and changing out the cool washcloth on Mia's forehead. Margaret brought in popsicles, reasoning that if Mia wouldn't drink water, at least she might suck on something cold. Lucas paced when he wasn't sitting with his daughter, his worry palpable. By 8 a.m., the fever had dropped to 100. Mia fell asleep holding Naomi's hand, her breathing evening out into something less labored. You should go get some rest, Naomi whispered to Lucas. I'll stay with her. You sure? I'm sure. He kissed Mia's forehead, then squeezed Naomi's shoulder as he left the room. Margaret appeared a few minutes later with 2 cups of coffee. You take it black? She asked, handing one to Naomi. That's fine. Thank you. Margaret settled into the chair by the window, studying Naomi with the kind of assessment only mothers seemed capable of. Lucas says you're a graphic designer. Freelance, yeah. Must be nice. Flexible schedule. It has its perks. You seen anyone else besides my son? The question was direct enough to make Naomi blink. No, just Lucas. Good. He's had enough people waste his time. Margaret sipped her coffee. He doesn't talk about Mia's mother much. Don't know if he told you. He mentioned she left. Left is a generous word for it. She walked out when Mia was 2 years old, said she never wanted to be a mother, that she'd made a mistake, that Lucas had trapped her. Margaret's voice was flat, controlled fury underneath. My son spent a year convinced it was somehow his fault. Took him another year to realize that some people are just built selfish, and there's nothing you can do about it. Naomi didn't know what to say to that. Guilt churned in her stomach. Point is, Margaret continued, Mia's been hurt by people who are supposed to love her. Lucas has too. So if you're not serious about this, if you're just killing time or looking for something casual, now's the time to walk away, before she gets more attached. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Nobody ever is, but hurt happens anyway. Margaret's gaze was steady. You seem like a good person, Emma. Just make sure you're being honest with my son. He deserves that much. The words landed like a punch. Before Naomi could respond, Mia stirred, mumbling something about dinosaurs. Margaret stood and felt her forehead. Fever's almost gone. She'll probably sleep for a while longer. She looked at Naomi. You're good with her. That counts for something. After Margaret left, Naomi sat in the quiet room watching Mia sleep and feeling the weight of what she'd done settling heavier on her shoulders. She told herself this was about finding someone who could see the real her, but the real her was a lie. Emma Clarke didn't exist. Every moment of honesty she'd shared with Lucas had been wrapped in deception. And now she was sitting here, holding his daughter's hand, knowing that when the truth came out, it would devastate both of them. Her phone buzzed. Grace. Richard's pushing for a meeting with the full executive team. He's positioning himself as interim CEO in your absence. Naomi stepped into the hallway to respond. He can position himself however he wants. I'm still CEO. Are you, though? Because from where everyone else is sitting, you've checked out. I handled the board meeting. Barely, and now you're my A again. Grace paused. I'm not judging. Whatever you're dealing with, you're entitled to deal with it. But you need to decide what you actually want. The company or whatever else is pulling you away. I can have both. Can you? Grace's voice softened. Because I've worked for you for 8 years, and I've never seen you take a day off, let alone a month. Whatever's happening, it's big enough to make you question everything. So question it, but make a decision before Richard makes it for you. The call ended. Naomi stood in the hallway, her back against the wall, feeling like she was being torn in half. Lucas appeared from his bedroom, looking slightly less exhausted. How is she? Fever broke, she's sleeping. Thank you for staying. Of course. He studied her face. What's wrong? Nothing. You're a terrible liar. He stepped closer, concern in his eyes. Talk to me. She almost did. The words were right there, pushing against her teeth. Instead, she shook her head. Just tired. It's been a long morning. He didn't believe her. She could see it in his expression. But he didn't push, just pulled her into a hug that felt like forgiveness she didn't deserve. Over the next few days, Mia recovered. The fever stayed gone, her appetite came back, and soon she was demanding to know when she could return to school because she was missing the unit on the solar system, and everyone knew she couldn't miss Space Week. Naomi found herself spending more time at Lucas's house. It started making sense to just stay over instead of driving back to her apartment late at night. She kept a toothbrush in his bathroom. She learned where he kept the coffee filters and which drawer had the good scissors. She became part of the morning routine, helping Mia find her shoes, making sure Lucas remembered his lunch, standing at the door watching them leave and feeling something dangerous blooming in her chest. This was what normal looked like. This was what belonging felt like, and she was destroying it with every day she didn't tell the truth. 2 weeks after Mia's fever, Naomi was making dinner in Lucas's kitchen when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Sinclair. The voice was professional, clipped. This is David Chen from the Wall Street Journal. I'm working on a piece about Sinclair Industries, and I was hoping to get a comment from you regarding the rumors about your extended leave of absence. Every muscle in her body locked up. I'm sorry, you must have the wrong number. I don't think I do. We've confirmed through multiple sources that you've been away from the company for nearly 6 weeks now. There's speculation about health issues, family problems, even rumors that you're planning to step down. I was hoping you could clarify. I have no comment. She hung up with shaking hands. Lucas looked up from where he was helping Mia with homework at the kitchen table. Everything okay? Wrong number. But her mind was racing. If the journal was sniffing around, it was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. Before someone saw her with Lucas and recognized her. Before the carefully constructed walls between her two lives came crashing down. She made it through dinner on autopilot, smiling and nodding in the right places while her thoughts spiraled. After Mia went to bed, Lucas found her standing on the back porch, staring at nothing. Okay, you're officially freaking me out, he said. What's going on? Nothing. Stop saying that. He turned her to face him. Something's wrong. You've been weird all night. Talk to me. I can't. Why not? Because if I tell you the truth, you'll hate me. Because I've built this entire relationship on a lie, and I don't know how to fix it. Because I'm terrified that the person you love doesn't actually exist. I just need some time to figure something out, she said instead. Figure what out? Lucas, please, just give me a few days. He stepped back, hurt flashing across his face. You're scaring me. Are you sick? Is something wrong with your family? Are you in some kind of trouble? I'm not sick. My family's fine. I'm not in trouble. Then what is it? She couldn't answer. The words stuck in her throat, choking her. Lucas ran his hand through his hair, frustration and worry warring in his expression. I've been trying to give you space, trying not to push, but we're past the point where you can just shut me out. If something's wrong, I need to know. Why? Because I love you. He said it like it was obvious, like she should have known. Because Mia loves you. Because you're part of our lives now, and whatever you're dealing with, we want to help. The words should have felt good. They felt like knives. I need to go, Naomi said. What? I just need some time alone to think. So think here, with me. I can't. She was already grabbing her jacket, her keys. I'm sorry, I just need a few days. A few days to what? Emma, you're not making any sense. She was at the door when his voice stopped her. Are you leaving? Like actually leaving? The question hung in the air between them. She turned back and saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear she'd heard in his voice when he talked about Mia's mother walking out, the fear that everyone he loved would eventually abandon him. No, she said. I'm not leaving. I just need to figure something out and then I'll explain everything. I promise. When? Soon. How soon? I don't know, Lucas. I'm sorry. I really am. She left before he could respond, before she could see the hurt deepen in his expression. She drove back to her penthouse with tears streaming down her face, knowing she was handling this in the worst possible way, but unable to see any other option. The penthouse felt like a stranger's home. She'd been gone so long that even the air smelled wrong, sterile and empty. She stood in her office, looking at the awards on the wall, the Forbes covers framed like trophies, the view of the city from 47 floors up. This was who she was. Naomi Sinclair, the woman who built empires and destroyed competitors and never let anyone see her sweat. But it wasn't who she wanted to be anymore. Her phone rang. Grace again. We need to talk, her assistant said. In person, tonight. Grace arrived an hour later with a tablet full of reports and an expression that said this conversation wasn't going to be pleasant. The journal piece is running tomorrow, she said without preamble. They're framing it as CEO in crisis. They've got quotes from anonymous board members questioning your fitness to lead. Richard's fingerprints are all over it. Naomi closed her eyes. How bad? Bad enough that you need to make a statement, tonight, before the market opens tomorrow. What kind of statement? The kind where you reassure everyone that you're still in control, that your absence was planned and productive, that Sinclair Industries is stable and thriving under your leadership. Grace paused. Or you could tell the truth. Which truth? That you've been trying to figure out if there's more to life than quarterly earnings and hostile takeovers. That you've been asking yourself if power is worth it, if you have nobody to share it with. Grace set down the tablet. I've watched you build this company into something incredible, but I've also watched you become someone I barely recognize, someone who doesn't laugh or take breaks or seem to enjoy any of it. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you took a vacation that wasn't secretly a work trip? When was the last time you had dinner with someone just because you liked them, not because they could do something for you? Grace's voice softened. Whoever this person is that's made you disappear for 6 weeks, they've done something I couldn't do in 8 years. They've made you remember you're human. Naomi sank into the chair behind her desk. It's complicated. It always is. Grace sat across from her. But you need to decide what you want, and then you need to be honest with everyone involved, including yourself. After Grace left, Naomi sat in the dark office and thought about what honesty would cost her. If she told Lucas the truth, she'd lose him. He'd see the deception for what it was, a betrayal of everything they'd built together. If she told the board the truth, they'd see weakness. In her world, weakness was blood in the water. But if she didn't tell the truth, she'd lose herself completely. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucas. Mia keeps asking where you are. I told her you had to work. I hope that's close to the truth. I miss you. Whatever you're dealing with, we can figure it out together. You don't have to do this alone. The message broke something in her. She'd spent her entire adult life doing things alone, building a company alone, making decisions alone. protecting herself from anyone who might hurt her by never letting them close enough to matter. And it had worked, in a sense. She was powerful and successful and completely isolated. Lucas was offering her something different: partnership, trust, the kind of vulnerability that terrified her more than any boardroom battle ever had. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, "I know, I'll explain everything soon, I promise." It wasn't enough. She knew it wasn't enough. But it was all she could manage. The journal piece ran at 6 a.m. Naomi's phone started ringing at 6:05 and didn't stop. Board members demanding explanations. Investors asking for reassurance. Reporters looking for comments. Richard Pemberton pretending to be concerned while clearly enjoying every second of her crisis. She ignored all of it and drove to Lucas's house. He answered the door in his work clothes, clearly about to leave for the hardware store. Surprise and relief crossed his face when he saw her. "Emma, I wasn't sure you were coming back. Can we talk? I have to get to work. But yeah, we need to talk." He stepped aside to let her in. "Mia's at my mom's. I can call in, tell them I'll be late." "No, go to work. I'll be here when you get back. We can talk then." He studied her face, trying to read what was happening. "You promise?" "I promise." After he left, Naomi stood in his living room and looked at all the small details that had become familiar. The coffee ring on the side table that never quite washed off, the stack of Mia's library books, the photo on the mantle of Lucas and his daughter at the beach, both of them laughing at something just out of frame. She pulled out her phone and called Grace. "I need you to do something for me," she said, "and you're probably going to think I've lost my mind." "I already think that. What do you need?" "Schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. I'm going to make a statement about my leave of absence." "What kind of statement?" "An honest one." Grace was quiet for a long moment. "You're really doing this?" "I'm really doing this." "Okay, I'll set it up. Anything else?" "Yeah." Naomi took a breath. "Start looking for my replacement." "What?" "Not immediately, but I want options. People who could step into the CEO role if I decide to step back." "Naomi, just do it, please. I need to know what my options are." After they hung up, Naomi spent the day in Lucas's house cleaning because she needed something to do with her hands. She did dishes. She folded laundry. She organized Mia's books by height and then by color, and then alphabetically because she couldn't figure out which system made the most sense. She was scrubbing the kitchen counter for the 3rd time when the front door opened. Lucas stood in the doorway, home 2 hours early, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "My mom called," he said slowly. "She was watching the news. There was a story about some CEO who's been missing from her company for weeks. Naomi Sinclair, head of Sinclair Industries." He paused. "And there was a photo of her from some charity gala a few months ago." Naomi's blood turned to ice. "Lucas, the weird thing is," he continued, his voice eerily calm, "she looked really familiar. Took me a minute to figure out why." He stepped into the house and closed the door behind him. "Then I realized she looked like you. A lot like you. Same eyes, same face, just different hair and clothes." She couldn't breathe. "So I did something I probably should have done weeks ago. I Googled Emma Clarke, freelance graphic designer." His jaw was tight. "You know what I found? About 1,000 Emma Clarkes. None of them you." "Let me explain." "Then I Googled Naomi Sinclair." He pulled out his phone and held it up, showing her a photo from some tech conference 2 years ago. Naomi in a tailored suit, standing at a podium, looking every inch the powerful CEO. "And I found hundreds of results, articles, interviews, photos." His voice cracked. "So, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to tell me the truth. Are you Naomi Sinclair?" The moment stretched between them, fragile and sharp. "Yes," she whispered. The word landed like a gunshot. Lucas flinched, then laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Wow, okay." He ran his hand through his hair, pacing. "So everything was a lie. Emma Clarke doesn't exist. The freelance work, the modest apartment, all of it, just a lie. Not all of it. Which parts were true? He spun to face her. The part where you pretended to struggle with money. The part where you acted like you understood what it was like to work 40-hour weeks and worry about bills? Or maybe the part where you met my daughter and let her get attached to someone who doesn't even exist. My feelings for you are real, for both of you. Your feelings? He laughed again, bitter. You don't even know what real feelings are. Real feelings require honesty. They require trust. You've been playing dress up in my life for 6 weeks, like it's some kind of game. It wasn't a game. Then what was it? He was shouting now. What the hell was this? Some rich person's experiment? See how the other half lives? Pretend to be normal for a while, and then go back to your empire when you get bored? I wanted to find someone who saw me, not my money, not my company, just me. But I didn't see you, the words echoed in the small house. I saw Emma. Someone you made up, someone who doesn't exist. The real you. Naomi Sinclair, billionaire, CEO. I never got to meet her. You made sure of that. Tears were streaming down her face. I'm still the same person. You're not, though. Emma was kind and honest and real. Naomi Sinclair is someone who lies to people's faces for weeks, who manipulates them into falling in love with a ghost. His voice broke. I told you I loved you. Mia told you she was glad I found you. And the whole time you were lying. I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you. When? When were you going to tell me? After we got married? After Mia started calling you mom? Or were you just going to disappear one day and let us wonder what we did wrong? The accusation hit like a slap. I would never do that. Why should I believe anything you say? Lucas's eyes were red. You've been lying since the second we met. Every conversation, every moment, all of it built on a lie. How am I supposed to trust a single word that comes out of your mouth? She had no answer for that. I need you to leave, he said finally, his voice flat. Please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You lied, you used me, and you dragged my daughter into it. He walked to the door and opened it. Get out. Lucas, get out of my house. Get out of our lives. Go back to your penthouse and your company and whatever the hell else matters more than the people you hurt. Naomi stood frozen, watching everything she'd built crumble to dust. I love you, she said desperately. You don't even know what that means. He was crying now too, angry tears that he swiped away with the back of his hand. Love is showing up honestly. Love is trusting someone with the truth. You didn't do any of that. You played me. That's not fair. Fair? His laugh was broken. You want to talk about fair? I let you into my life, into Mia's life. I trusted you with the most important thing in my world, and you repaid that by lying every single day. She walked to the door on numb legs. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Lucas's voice was hollow. You hurt both of us. And the worst part is you did it while pretending to care. The door closed in her face. Naomi stood on the porch for a long time, listening to the sounds of him moving inside the house. Cabinets slamming, furniture scraping, the muffled sounds of breaking down. She wanted to knock, to beg for another chance, to somehow make him understand. But there was nothing to understand. She'd lied. She'd hurt him. And no amount of explanation would change that. She drove back to the penthouse in a daze, seeing nothing, feeling nothing but the hollow ache in her chest where her heart used to be. When she got there, she walked straight to her bedroom and lay down on the bed, still wearing her shoes, still wearing the cheap clothes she'd bought to be Emma Clarke. Her phone buzzed. Multiple messages from Grace, from board members, from reporters. She ignored all of it, because none of it mattered anymore. She'd won the game she'd been playing her entire adult life. She'd gotten what she wanted, found someone who saw her for who she was instead of what she had. And then she'd destroyed it with her own hands. The worst part was knowing Lucas was right. She didn't know what love meant. She'd confused it with control, with protection, with keeping herself safe from ever being hurt. And in doing so, she'd hurt the only people who'd ever actually mattered. She didn't sleep that night, just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every lie, every time she could have told the truth and chose not to. By dawn, she'd made a decision. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. Grace had arranged it in the main conference room at Sinclair Industries headquarters, the same room where Naomi had fired people, closed deals, built an empire. Now she was going to use it to tell the truth for once. She dressed carefully. Not Emma's cheap jeans and Target sweaters. Not Naomi's designer armor either. Something in between. A simple black dress, minimal jewelry, her hair down instead of pulled back. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The conference room was packed. Reporters, cameras, board members sitting in the back with expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Richard Pemberton had positioned himself in the front row, clearly expecting a spectacle. Grace met her at the door. "You don't have to do this. We can spin it a different way. Controlled message? No questions." "No, I need to do this." "Okay." Grace squeezed her arm. "For what it's worth, I think you're brave." Naomi walked to the podium. The room fell silent. Cameras clicked. She gripped the edges of the wood and took a breath. 6 weeks ago, I made a choice that some of you will understand and most of you will judge. I walked away from this company without explanation. I let rumors spread. I avoided calls and meetings and responsibilities. She paused. I did this because I was trying to answer a question I'd been asking myself for years. Who am I when I'm not Naomi Sinclair, CEO? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Richard leaned forward, smelling blood. I spent my entire adult life building Sinclair Industries. I worked 80-hour weeks. I sacrificed relationships, friendships, any semblance of a personal life. And I told myself it was worth it because I was creating something important, something that mattered. Her voice cracked slightly. But the truth is, I was hiding. Using work as an excuse to avoid the terrifying prospect of letting anyone actually know me. She saw Grace in the back, nodding encouragement. So I did something reckless. I created a fake identity. I erased everything that made me Naomi Sinclair and stepped into the world as someone ordinary. Someone with no money, no power, no safety net. I wanted to see if anyone could care about me without knowing what I was worth. The room was dead silent now, and I met someone. A good man with a beautiful daughter who let me into their lives, who showed me what it meant to just be present, to care about small moments, to build something real. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she didn't wipe them away. And I lied to them, every single day. I told myself it was necessary, that I was protecting myself, that I deserved to be seen for who I really was. But the person they saw wasn't real either. She was just another version of the lie I'd been telling my whole life. She could see some reporters typing furiously, others just watching with something that looked like sympathy. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. I betrayed their trust, and I did it because I was a coward. She looked directly at the cameras. This is my public apology to Lucas Grant and his daughter Mia. I'm sorry. You deserved honesty, and I gave you deception. You deserved someone real, and I gave you a performance. I will never forgive myself for that. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This wasn't the implosion he'd been hoping for. As for Sinclair Industries, I'm not stepping down. But I'm making changes. Effective immediately, I'm implementing a 6-month transition plan. I'll be training a successor and shifting into an advisory role. This company deserves a leader who can give it everything. And right now, I need to figure out who I am before I can lead anyone else. The room erupted in questions. She held up her hand. I'm not taking questions. This isn't a negotiation. It's a statement of fact. She looked at Richard. And if anyone on the board wants to call another vote of no confidence, feel free, but I'm doing this my way. She walked out to chaos, reporters shouting questions, board members trying to intercept her, Richard's face red with fury. Grace created a path through the crowd, and Naomi made it to her office before her legs gave out. That was insane, that Grace said. Also possibly the most honest thing I've ever seen you do. I just committed career suicide. Maybe. Or maybe you just saved your life. Grace sat across from her. What now? Now I have to live with what I've done. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop. She finally looked at it. Hundreds of messages, most from numbers she didn't recognize. But one caught her eye. Margaret Grant. You have some nerve showing up on television and apologizing like that makes it okay. My son is destroyed. My granddaughter cried herself to sleep last night asking why Emma left. If you think a press conference fixes what you broke, you're even more deluded than I thought. Naomi read it 3 times, each word a knife to the chest. She deserved every bit of Margaret's anger. More than deserved it. She typed back, I know. I'm sorry. Please tell Mia I'm sorry too. The response came fast. Tell her yourself, or better yet, stay away from my family. You've done enough damage. The following days blurred together. The media had a field day with her press conference. Some outlets praised her honesty. Others called it a publicity stunt. The stock took a hit, but stabilized. The board scheduled an emergency meeting to discuss the transition plan. Richard tried to position himself as the obvious successor and got shut down so thoroughly by the other board members that he submitted his resignation by the end of the week. None of it mattered to Naomi. She went through the motions, showed up to meetings, made decisions, but it all felt hollow. She'd spent years building this empire. Now that she was preparing to let it go, she felt nothing but relief and guilt. Crushing, inescapable guilt. Grace found her in her office late one night, staring at nothing. You need to go home. Sleep. I can't sleep. Have you tried? Naomi laughed bitterly. Every night, I just lie there thinking about Mia's face when she gave me that rock, when she hugged me and said she was glad her dad found me. So fix it. I can't. He won't talk to me. His mother told me to stay away. Then respect that. Grace's voice was gentle. You can't force forgiveness, but you can work on being someone who deserves it, even if you never get it. A week after the press conference, Naomi was leaving the office when she saw a familiar SUV parked across the street. Her heart stopped. Lucas sat in the driver's seat, just watching the building. She walked over slowly, giving him time to drive away if he wanted. He didn't. She stopped a few feet from the car. He rolled down the window. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. His voice was flat, emotionless. What are you doing here? I saw your press conference. Oh. Mia saw it too. My mom was watching the news and Mia came in. He looked at her for the first time, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. She asked why Emma was on TV calling herself a different name, asked why you looked so sad, asked if she did something wrong to make you leave. Naomi's vision blurred. Lucas, I'm so sorry. I told her you had to go away for work, that sometimes adults make mistakes and have to fix them. She asked if you were coming back. He paused. I didn't know what to tell her. I understand if you never want to see me again. Both of you. I understand if you hate me. I don't hate you. He sounded tired, defeated. I want to. It would be easier if I could just hate you and move on. But I keep thinking about all those moments that felt real. The coffee shop, the park, watching you with Mia. His voice cracked. Were any of them real for you? All of them. Every single one. But you were lying. I was lying about my name and my job and where I lived. I wasn't lying about how I felt. She stepped closer to the car. Everything I told you about what I wanted, about being lonely, about wanting someone to see me, that was real. I just went about it in the worst possible way. Lucas stared straight ahead. My mom thinks I'm an idiot for even being here. She thinks you played me and I should just forget you existed. She's probably right. She usually is. He finally looked at her again. But she didn't see what I saw. She didn't watch you burn toast because you got distracted reading. She didn't see you with Mia, how patient you were, how you actually listened to her dinosaur facts like they mattered. She didn't see you fall asleep on my couch during that documentary, or how you looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. Naomi couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. I fell in love with someone, Lucas continued. Maybe she was part Emma and part Naomi and part whoever the hell you actually are underneath all the lies. But I fell in love with her, and now I don't know if she exists. She exists. She's right here, standing in front of you, terrified and guilty and completely in love with you. How do I trust that? How do I ever trust anything you say? I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. I just know I have to try. They sat in silence. Cars passed on the street. The city moved around them, indifferent to their pain. Mia's birthday is in 2 weeks, Lucas said finally. The party we invited you to, before everything imploded. I remember. She still wants you there. I told her you probably couldn't come, that you were busy with work. She cried. His jaw clenched. She's 6 years old, and she's crying over someone who lied to her, someone I brought into her life. I never wanted to hurt her, either of you. I know, that's what makes it so hard. He put his hands on the steering wheel. I need time to figure out if I can get past this, if I even want to try. Take all the time you need. If you come to the party, you come as yourself. Naomi Sinclair, no more Emma Clarke, no more lies, just who you actually are, okay? And you need to be the one to explain it to Mia. Why you lied, why you left, all of it. She deserves to hear it from you. The thought terrified her. What do I say? The truth, for once. He started the engine. I'll text you the details. Whether you show up or not is your choice. He drove away before she could respond. The next 2 weeks were the longest of her life. She threw herself into work, training her potential successor, a brilliant woman named Sarah Chen, who had none of Naomi's control issues and twice her emotional intelligence. She met with lawyers about restructuring her role. She started seeing a therapist because Grace had insisted, and because she was finally ready to admit she needed help. But mostly she thought about Mia, about a little girl who'd trusted her, who'd given her a rock for good luck, who'd fallen asleep holding her hand when she was sick, a little girl who deserved so much better than what Naomi had given her. The morning of the party, Naomi stood in her closet for 20 minutes, trying to decide what to wear. Not the designer clothes that screamed wealth, not Emma's cheap disguise either. Finally, she settled on jeans and a simple sweater. Expensive, but not obviously so. Herself, whoever that was. The party was at a park pavilion, decorated with streamers and balloons, and enough dinosaur-themed everything to stock a museum gift shop. Kids ran everywhere, high on sugar and excitement. Parents stood in clusters, chatting and drinking coffee from a big thermos someone had brought. Naomi spotted Lucas immediately. He was setting up a table with Mia, both of them laughing about something. Margaret stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Naomi approach with undisguised hostility. Mia saw her first. Her face went through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, joy, confusion, hurt. She looked at her father. Lucas bent down and said something to her. Mia nodded slowly. He straightened and met Naomi's eyes across the pavilion, giving her the smallest nod. Naomi walked over, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. "Hi, Mia," she said softly. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Emma?" Mia's voice was small, uncertain. "Actually, my name is Naomi. Can we talk for a minute? Just you and me?" Mia looked at Lucas again. He nodded. She took Naomi's hand. That small, trusting gesture nearly broke her, and they walked to a bench away from the crowd. Naomi sat down. Mia climbed up beside her, waiting. "I need to tell you something," Naomi began, "and it's going to be hard to hear, but I need you to know I'm telling you the truth this time." "Okay." "When I met you and your dad, I wasn't honest about who I was. I told you my name was Emma, but it's really Naomi. I told you I was a graphic designer, but I actually run a big company. I told you a lot of things that weren't true." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" "Because I was scared. I wanted people to like me for who I am, not for my money or my job, so I pretended to be someone different." Naomi's voice shook. "But that was wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning, especially with you. Did you lie about liking me?" "No, never. Everything I felt about you was real. You're smart and funny and kind, and spending time with you made me happier than I'd been in years." Naomi wiped at her eyes. "I'm so sorry I hurt you, Mia. You didn't deserve that." Mia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, "Are you still Emma?" "I'm still me. I'm still the person who helped with your dinosaur homework and flew kites with you. I just have a different name and a different job." "Why did you leave?"
Esse because your dad found out I'd been lying, and he was very hurt and very angry. And he had every right to be. I made a really big mistake. Are you going to leave again? The question gutted her. I don't want to, but that's up to your dad. If he decides he doesn't want me in your lives anymore, I have to respect that. Mia thought about this seriously. Daddy says when you make a mistake, you have to say sorry and try to fix it. He's right. Did you say sorry to him? I did. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. Sometimes you hurt someone so badly that they need time to decide if they can forgive you. I forgive you, Mia said simply. Naomi started crying in earnest then. Thank you. That means more than you know. Can I still call you Emma? It's easier to remember. Despite everything, Naomi laughed. You can call me whatever you want. Mia hugged her suddenly, fiercely. Naomi held her close, breathing in the smell of birthday cake and strawberry shampoo, committing this moment to memory in case it was the last one. When they walked back to the party, Lucas was watching them with an expression she couldn't read. Margaret looked slightly less murderous. Mia ran off to play with her friends, already distracted by the promise of presents. Thank you for coming, Lucas said quietly. Thank you for letting me. They stood in awkward silence, watching kids chase each other around the pavilion. She forgave you pretty quickly, Lucas observed. She's 6. She still believes people can change. Do you believe that? Naomi looked at him. I'm trying to. The party continued around them. They helped serve cake, supervised games, made small talk with other parents who clearly had no idea who Naomi was. She fielded questions about how she knew Lucas with simple honesty. We met a few months ago, and didn't elaborate. Toward the end, after most of the guests had left, Mia opened her presents. She tore through wrapping paper with gleeful abandon, exclaiming over dinosaur toys and books and craft supplies. When she got to Naomi's gift, she paused. This one's from Emma, she announced. It was a rock tumbler kit, something Naomi had found online after remembering Mia's rock collection. The little girl's face lit up. I can make my rock shiny. You can. Your dad will have to help you set it up. Can you help too? Naomi glanced at Lucas. He was watching them with an expression that was equal parts pain and something else. Something that might have been hope. If your dad says it's okay, Naomi said carefully, we'll figure it out, Lucas said. After the party ended, they cleaned up together, Lucas, Naomi, and Margaret, who maintained an icy silence the entire time. Mia had gone home with a friend for a sleepover, giving them space to talk. When everything was packed away, Margaret finally spoke. I'm going to say this once. You hurt my son, you hurt my granddaughter, and I will never fully trust you again. She fixed Naomi with a hard stare. But Mia likes you. And Lucas, for reasons I cannot comprehend, is considering giving you another chance. So if you stay in their lives, you better mean it. No more running, no more lies. You show up, you stay honest, and you put them first. Understand? I understand. Good. Margaret turned to Lucas. I'll see you tomorrow. Try not to make any decisions tonight that you'll regret. After she left, Lucas and Naomi stood in the parking lot as the sun set, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. Walk with me? He asked. They walked around the park in silence, following the path that circled the pond. The same path they'd walked with Mia weeks ago, in what felt like another lifetime. I've been angry, Lucas said finally. So angry I couldn't think straight. Angry at you for lying. Angry at myself for not seeing it. Angry at the whole situation. You have every right to be angry. I know, but anger is exhausting, and underneath it, I'm just sad. Because I miss you. I miss the person I fell in love with, even if I'm not entirely sure who that person was. She was me, is me, just without all the protective walls I'd built up. Naomi stopped walking. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I destroyed your trust and hurt Mia and proved I'm exactly the kind of person who shouldn't be in your lives. But I love you, both of you. And if you're willing to try again, I swear I will spend every day proving that I can be someone worthy of that trust. Lucas stared at the water, his jaw working. My therapist says I have abandonment issues.
That I'm so terrified of being left that I push people away before they can leave first. You're seeing a therapist? Started 2 weeks ago. Figured if I was going to work through this, I needed help. He finally looked at her. She also said that sometimes people make terrible choices for understandable reasons. That hurt doesn't always mean the end. What do you think? I think I'm terrified. I think giving you another chance could be the stupidest thing I've ever done. I think Mia could get hurt worse if this doesn't work out. He stepped closer. But I also think I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. And I think you showed up today knowing it might end badly, and you did it anyway because Mia mattered more than your fear. That counts for something. So what do? We start over. For real this time. No Emma Clarke, no pretending. You show me who Naomi Sinclair actually is, and I decide if I can love her the way I loved the person I thought you were. That's fair. And we go slow, really slow. No moving in, no big declarations. We date like normal people who are getting to know each other. Okay? And if I need space, you give it to me. If I have a day where I'm too angry to see you, you respect that. This is going to be messy and hard, and there are no guarantees. I understand. He reached out and took her hand. The simple touch felt like absolution. I'm still hurt, he said quietly. It's going to take time before I can fully trust you again. I know. I'll wait as long as it takes. They stood there as darkness fell around them, holding hands in a park where they'd flown kites and eaten ice cream and built something fragile and precious, something worth fighting for. Tell me something true, Lucas said. Something you've never told anyone. Naomi thought about all the truths she'd hoarded over the years, all the vulnerabilities she'd hidden behind money and power and carefully constructed walls. I'm terrified I don't know how to be in a relationship, that I'm too damaged or too selfish or too used to being alone. I'm terrified that even if you forgive me, I'll somehow mess this up again because I don't know how to be the person you need. I don't need you to be anyone except who you are. That's all I've ever wanted. She looked at him through tears. Who I am is someone who's trying to be better, who wants to learn how to love people without protecting myself from them, who thinks you and Mia are worth every scary, vulnerable moment. Lucas pulled her into a hug then, and she felt something loosen in her chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a guarantee that everything would be okay, but it was a beginning. They sat on a bench and talked until the park closed, sharing truths in the darkness. She told him about her father's death, about the loneliness of building an empire alone, about the specific kind of isolation that came with power. He told her about the panic attacks he'd had after Mia's mother left, about the nights he'd wondered if he was enough, about learning to ask for help. When they finally left, Lucas walked her to her car. Can I see you this weekend? He asked. I'd like that. Just coffee. Nothing dramatic, just two people having a conversation. That sounds perfect. He kissed her cheek, tentative and sweet, and walked away. Naomi sat in her car for a long time, watching him go, feeling something that might have been hope stirring in her chest. The road ahead would be hard. There would be setbacks and difficult conversations and moments when the past threatened to destroy the future they were trying to build. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't facing it alone. The coffee shop Lucas chose was different from the one where they'd first met. This one was smaller, louder, packed with students hunched over laptops and mothers corralling toddlers. They got their drinks and found a table wedged between a bookshelf and the window. So, Lucas said, stirring sugar into his coffee for the third time. Nervous habit. Tell me about Naomi Sinclair, the real version. She'd been dreading this question and preparing for it in equal measure. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with how you ended up running a billion-dollar company. So she told him about her father, Harrison Sinclair, who'd built the company from nothing and raised her to be just as ruthless. About business school at 22, joining the company at 24, becoming CEO at 30 when her father had a stroke that left him unable to lead. About the brother who'd tried to stage a coup and the mother who'd never forgiven her for choosing the company over family dinners. My father used to say that sentiment was a luxury we couldn't afford, Naomi said, watching steam rise from her cup. He taught me to see people as assets or liabilities, nothing in between. That sounds lonely. It is, she corrected herself. I spent so many years being what he wanted me to be that I forgot how to be anything else. And then he died, and I realized I'd built my entire identity around his approval. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Is that why you created Emma? To figure out who you'd be without all that? Partially. Also because every relationship I'd ever had felt transactional. People wanted access or money or connections. I wanted someone to want me. She met his eyes. That sounds pathetic, doesn't it? It sounds human. They talked for 2 hours. She told him about the pressure of running Sinclair Industries, about board meetings that felt like combat, about the specific exhaustion of making decisions that affected thousands of people's livelihoods. He told her about the hardware store, about customers who came in with projects way beyond their skill level, and how he'd spend hours helping them anyway. There's this old guy, Mr. Peterson, Lucas said. Comes in every Saturday for supplies he doesn't need. I realized after a few months he's just lonely. His wife died last year, so now I make sure to take a coffee break when he comes in, just to talk. That's kind. It's basic human decency, something your father apparently didn't teach you. The observation stung because it was true. He taught me how to win, just not what to do after you've won everything and realize you're still empty. When they left the coffee shop, Lucas walked her to her car again. The gesture was becoming familiar, comforting. Can I ask you something? He said. Anything. The press conference, when you said you were stepping down as CEO, did you mean it? I'm transitioning to an advisory role, training someone to take over the day-to-day operations. Why? She looked at him standing there in his worn jacket and scuffed boots, this man who'd somehow made her want to be better. Because I don't want to be the person my father raised me to be. I want to figure out who I could be if I made different choices. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. He smiled then, soft and genuine. Same time next week? I'd like that. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Coffee on Saturdays while Mia was at her friend's house. Occasional dinners at casual restaurants where nobody recognized Naomi. Long phone calls late at night when both of them should have been sleeping. Lucas asked questions that made her uncomfortable in the best way. What did she actually enjoy? What made her laugh? If money wasn't a factor, how would she spend her days? She discovered she didn't have good answers. She'd spent so long performing the role of CEO that she'd forgotten to have preferences that weren't strategic. I like documentaries, she offered one night, about nature and history and how things work. Okay, what else? I like bees. He laughed, warm and familiar. I know you like bees. You've told me approximately 40 bee facts. What else? She thought hard. I don't know. I used to like painting before business school. Haven't done it in probably 15 years. Why not? No time. You have time now. Or you will, once this transition is finished. The idea felt foreign. Having time. Doing things just because she wanted to, not because they served a strategic purpose. A month into their second chance, Lucas invited her to dinner at his house. Real dinner, not coffee or neutral territory. When she arrived, Mia met her at the door. Naomi. She looked at her father, confused. Just call her whatever feels right, Lucas said. Can I call you both? Sure, sweetheart. Mia grabbed her hand and dragged her inside. I made you a drawing. It's a stegosaurus eating flowers because they're herbivores, remember? The drawing was taped to the refrigerator between a spelling test and a grocery list. Naomi felt something warm bloom in her chest. Dinner was spaghetti again, apparently Lucas's signature dish, and Mia dominated the conversation with a detailed explanation of her science project on volcanoes. After they ate, Lucas sent Mia to get ready for bed and turned to Naomi. She's been asking when you're coming over. I couldn't put it off anymore without a good reason. And you didn't have a good reason? I had reasons. I'm just not sure they're good ones anymore. He started clearing plates. My therapist says I'm using caution as an excuse to avoid vulnerability. Is she right? Probably, but I'm also genuinely scared of getting hurt again, of Mia getting hurt. Naomi helped him load the dishwasher. I'm scared too, of being the person who hurts you, of proving everyone right who said, I'm too selfish or damaged to be in a relationship. You're not that person. How do you know? He turned to face her, his hands still damp from the dishes. Because that person wouldn't be here, wouldn't be trying this hard, wouldn't show up to a 6-year-old's birthday party knowing she might get her heart broken again. He paused. The person I'm getting to know, Naomi, not Emma, she's imperfect and scared and trying to figure out who she is. But she's not selfish. She's just learning how to be human. The words hit harder than any boardroom victory ever had. Mia called from her bedroom that she was ready. Lucas went to tuck her in, and Naomi followed after a moment, standing in the doorway while he went through the bedtime routine. 3 stories tonight, Mia announced, because Emma Naomi is here, and that's special. 2 stories, Lucas countered, because you have school tomorrow. 2.5? 2. Pick your books. After the stories and the recap of the day and the glass of water and the extra hug, Mia looked at Naomi. Are you staying for breakfast? Naomi glanced at Lucas. He was carefully not looking at her. Not tonight, sweetheart, but maybe another time. Okay. Good night, Emma Naomi. I'm glad you came back. Those simple words nearly destroyed her. I'm glad, too. When Lucas walked her out later, they stood on the porch in the cool night air. She's getting attached again, he said quietly. I see it happening, and I don't know if I should stop it or let it happen. What does your gut say? My gut says I'm falling in love with you all over again, which terrifies me because I never stopped loving you the first time. I was just too hurt and angry to admit it. Naomi's breath caught. Lucas, I'm not saying we rush anything. I'm just saying I need you to know where I'm at. I need you to know that if this doesn't work, it's not going to be a clean break. It's going to wreck me. It'll wreck me too. Then we better make it work. He kissed her then, soft and tentative and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Naomi rested her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. The real me loves the real you. No more pretending. No more pretending, he agreed. 2 months later, Naomi officially stepped back from her CEO role. Sarah Chen took over with the kind of grace and competence that made Naomi simultaneously proud and slightly jealous. The board accepted the transition with minimal drama, mostly because the stock had stabilized and Sarah's first quarter results were strong. Naomi kept her seat on the board and maintained an advisory role, but the day-to-day pressure lifted. She started sleeping past 6 a.m. She took a painting class at the community college and discovered she was terrible at it, but enjoyed it anyway. She had lunch with Grace once a week and slowly, carefully, started building friendships that weren't based on professional necessity. And she spent time with Lucas and Mia. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when Lucas pulled back, when old hurts surfaced and he needed space. There were days when Naomi slipped into her old patterns, trying to control everything, making decisions without consulting him, treating their relationship like a business arrangement instead of a partnership. They fought about money, about priorities, about what it meant to build a life together when they came from such different worlds. But they kept showing up, kept trying. One evening, 6 months into their second chance, Margaret invited Naomi to dinner. Just the 2 of them, at Margaret's small house across town. Naomi arrived with flowers and dread in equal measure. Sit, Margaret commanded, pointing to the kitchen table. They ate pot roast in tense silence for 10 minutes before Margaret set down her fork. I've been watching you, she said, watching how you are with my son and my granddaughter. Okay, you're trying, I'll give you that. You show up, you're honest about your mistakes. You don't pretend to be something you're not anymore. But I need to know this is real, that you're not going to wake up one day and realize playing house with a hardware store manager is beneath you, that you're not going to break their hearts when your real life calls you back. Naomi met her eyes. My real life is here, with them. Everything else, the money, the company, the penthouse I barely use anymore, that's the performance. This is real. You say that now. What happens when you get bored? When the novelty wears off? I don't think loving someone is a novelty that wears off. I think it's work. Every day, you choose them. You show up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Naomi paused. My father taught me that relationships are transactions. Lucas is teaching me they're not. They're messy and complicated, and they require you to be vulnerable in ways that terrify me. But I'd rather be terrified with him than safe and alone. Margaret studied her for a long moment. My son deserves someone who chooses him, not someone who settles for him because their other options didn't work out. I'm not settling. I'm choosing every single day. Then prove it. How? Keep showing up, even when it's inconvenient, even when your fancy friends judge you for dating someone who drives a 12-year-old truck, even when the world tells you you're too good for this life. Margaret's voice softened slightly. If you can do that, if you can build something real with my son, then maybe I'll stop waiting for you to leave. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Spring turned to summer. Mia finished first grade with straight A's and a comprehensive knowledge of dinosaurs that impressed even her teachers. Lucas got a promotion at the hardware store. Not much more money, but better hours and the title of assistant manager. Naomi sold her penthouse and moved into a modest house in Lucas's neighborhood, close enough to walk to his place but separate enough to maintain some independence. They took it slow. No moving in together, no big declarations to Mia about their future. Just building something steady, day by day. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in July, everything changed. Naomi was at Lucas's house helping Mia set up her rock tumbler when Lucas's phone rang. She saw his face drain of color as he listened. "I'll be right there," he said, then hung up. "It's my mom. She collapsed at work. They're taking her to County General." They drove to the hospital in near silence, Mia asking worried questions from the back seat that neither adult had good answers for. At the hospital, they found Margaret in the ER, hooked up to monitors and looking smaller than Naomi had ever seen her. "Heart attack," the doctor explained. "Relatively minor, but she'll need to stay for observation. Possibly surgery, depending on what the tests show." Lucas sat by his mother's bed, holding her hand, looking lost in a way that broke Naomi's heart. Mia climbed into Margaret's bed, against hospital rules, but nobody stopped her, and curled against her grandmother. "I'm okay, baby girl, Margaret said weakly. "Just got a little too excited at work." "You have to rest, Ia," Mia said seriously. "The doctor said." "I'll rest. Promise." Over the next week, Margaret stayed in the hospital undergoing tests and procedures. Lucas juggled work and Mia and hospital visits, running himself ragged, trying to be everywhere at once. Naomi watched him deteriorate, skipping meals, sleeping in waiting room chairs, snapping at people from exhaustion. On the fourth day, she found him in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., staring at cold coffee. "Go home," she said gently. "I can't leave her." "You can for a few hours. You need sleep." "Mia is at my house with a babysitter I hired. She's fine. Your mom is stable. You need to take care of yourself." "I'm fine." You're not fine. You're exhausted and running on fumes, and you're going to make yourself sick." He looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "I can't lose her. She's all I have, her and Mia." "You're not going to lose her. The doctor said she's responding well to treatment." "You don't know that. Things can change in a second. People leave. They die. They disappear." His voice cracked. "I can't do this alone." Naomi sat beside him and took his hand. "You're not alone. I'm here." "For how long?" Question hung between them. "As long as you'll have me," she said quietly. "I know you're scared. I know trust doesn't come easy for you, especially with me. But I'm not going anywhere, Lucas. Your mom has a heart attack. I'm here. Mia gets sick. I'm here. You have a bad day at work. I'm here. That's what this means." He stared at their joined hands. What means this, us, choosing each other, building a life together? She took a breath. "I love you. I love Mia. I love your stubborn mother who hates me. I want to be part of this family, if you'll let me." Lucas was crying now, silent tears streaming down his exhausted face. "I want that too. I'm just so scared of wanting it." "I know, me too." They sat in that fluorescent-lit cafeteria until dawn, talking through fears and hopes and the future they were both terrified to imagine. When the sun rose, they went back upstairs together. Margaret came home a week later with strict orders to rest and modify her diet and stop working 60-hour weeks. Lucas took time off to stay with her, and Naomi took Mia. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Mia needed someone while Lucas cared for Margaret, and Naomi was the obvious choice. Suddenly, she was doing school drop-offs and pickups, making lunches, helping with homework, enforcing bedtime routines. She was terrible at it. She forgot to pack snacks. She showed up 15 minutes late to pick up because a conference call ran long. She made dinner that Mia politely refused to eat because it had weird green things in it. But she kept trying. On the third night, after Mia was asleep, Naomi called Lucas. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted. "I gave her cereal for dinner because I burned the chicken. I forgot it was library day, and she came home crying because she didn't have her books. I'm failing at this." Lucas laughed. Actually laughed. "Welcome to parenthood. You think I knew what I was doing when Mia was born? I once put her diaper on backwards. How is that even possible? I was sleep deprived and panicking. The point is, nobody knows what they're doing. You just show up and try not to mess them up too badly. That's not reassuring. It's honest." She heard the smile in his voice. "She tell you about library day?" "Through tears. But she told you. That means she trusts you enough to be upset with you. That's huge." Naomi looked at Mia's drawings covering her refrigerator, at the dinosaur book stacked on her coffee table, at the tiny shoes by her front door. "I'm in love with her, your daughter. Is that weird?" "No, it's perfect." By the time Margaret recovered enough for Lucas to return to work, something had shifted. Mia started asking when she could stay at Naomi's house again. Lucas started making plans that included all three of them without questioning whether Naomi would be available. They were becoming a family. It wasn't the family Naomi had imagined building. There was no perfect proposal, no wedding announcement in the society pages, no merging of empires or strategic alliance. Instead, it was school projects and Sunday dinners at Margaret's house and arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. It was real. Messy and imperfect and absolutely real. One evening in October, almost a year after everything had fallen apart and slowly come back together, Naomi sat on Lucas's back porch while he put Mia to bed. The air was cool, autumn settling in. She could hear his voice through the window, reading whatever dinosaur book Mia had chosen tonight. Her phone buzzed. An email from Sarah Chen with the quarterly reports. Sinclair Industries was thriving. Better than it had under Naomi's leadership, if she was being honest. Sarah had brought fresh perspective, new energy, a collaborative approach that the company had desperately needed. Naomi felt nothing but relief. Lucas came out and sat beside her, handing her a beer. "She wants to know when you're moving in," he said without preamble. "What?" "Mia. She asked me tonight why you have a house when you're always here anyway." He took a drink of his beer. "I told her these things are complicated. She said that's what adults say when they're scared." "Smart kid." "Too smart." He looked at her. "Are you scared?" "Terrified. Moving in together is big. What if we drive each other crazy? What if I'm too set in my ways? What if it works?" He interrupted. "What if we're good at this? What if a year from now we're wondering why we waited so long?" Naomi thought about her house, the one she'd bought to prove she could live modestly, to show Lucas she was serious about changing. It had never felt like home. Not the way this cramped house with the wobbly table and the drawings on every surface felt like home. "I'd need closet space," she said. "A lot of closet space." Lucas grinned. "We can make that work. And I'm keeping my office for video calls. Fair. And I'm terrible at remembering garbage day. I'll handle garbage day." She looked at him, at this man who'd somehow taught her what love actually meant. "Are we really doing this?" "I think we've been doing this for a while. We're just making it official." They told Mia the next morning over pancakes. Her reaction was to scream so loud the neighbors probably called the police, then demand to know if this meant Naomi would be there every morning for breakfast. "Every morning," Naomi confirmed. "Even Saturdays?" "Even Saturdays." Mia considered this. "Can we get a dog?" "Absolutely not," Lucas and Naomi said simultaneously, then looked at each other and laughed. Moving in was chaos. Naomi had accumulated less than she'd thought in her modest house, but it was still too much for Lucas's limited space. They spent a weekend rearranging furniture, donating things neither of them needed, arguing about where to hang pictures. Margaret came over to supervise and mostly made sarcastic comments about how two grown adults couldn't figure out basic spatial relationships. But Naomi caught her smiling when she thought no one was looking. That night, After everything was unpacked and Mia was asleep in her room and Lucas was in the shower, Naomi stood in the living room looking at how their lives had blended together. Her expensive coffee maker next to his cheap one, her books mixed with his. Mia's drawings displayed prominently on walls that now belonged to all of them. She pulled out her phone and looked at the rock Mia had given her all those months ago. She'd been carrying it in her bag ever since. "Make a wish on it," Mia had said. Something important. She'd wished for this. For belonging. For love that didn't require her to perform or pretend. For a family. And somehow, despite everything she'd done wrong, despite the lies and the hurt and the mess she'd made, the wish had come true. Lucas emerged from the shower, found her standing there. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" "About how I spent 38 years chasing the wrong things, building empires and accumulating wealth and convincing myself that power was the same as purpose." She turned to face him. "And then I met you and Mia and realized I didn't know anything about what actually mattered." He crossed the room and pulled her close. "You know now." "I'm learning, still learning. We both are. That's the point." 6 months later, on a Sunday afternoon in April, they had a small ceremony in Margaret's backyard. Not a wedding. Neither of them wanted the performance of that, the weight of legal entanglement and social expectations. Just a commitment ceremony, witnessed by the people who mattered. Mia wore a dress covered in dinosaurs and served as the flower girl and the ring bearer and the officiant because she'd insisted she could do all 3 jobs. Margaret cried and pretended she wasn't. Sarah Chen came and brought half the executive team. Grace gave a toast that was equal parts sentimental and sarcastic. Lucas's vows were simple. "I choose you. Every day, I choose you. In the mess and the chaos and the ordinary moments that make up a life, I choose us." Naomi's vows were harder to write. She'd gone through 17 drafts before settling on the truth. "You taught me that the greatest fortune isn't money or power or empire. It's being known, being seen, being loved for exactly who you are, flaws included. You gave me that. You and Mia, and I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of it." They exchanged simple rings. No diamonds, no extravagance. Just silver bands engraved with the date they'd met, both times. The first meeting built on lies, the second on truth. Both mattered. Both had brought them here. After the ceremony, while everyone ate cake and Mia explained to anyone who would listen that pterodactyls weren't actually dinosaurs, Naomi found herself talking to Margaret. "Thank you for coming," Naomi said. "Where else would I be? Someone has to make sure you actually follow through with this." "I'm following through." Margaret studied her. "You know what? I think you actually are. You're still too rich and too used to getting your way, but you love my son. And you're good to my granddaughter. That counts for something." "Does this mean you've forgiven me?" "It means I'm working on it. Ask me again in a few years." It was the closest thing to approval Naomi was likely to get. That night, after everyone had gone home and Mia was asleep and the house was quiet, Lucas and Naomi sat on their back porch watching fireflies. "No regrets?" he asked. "About what?" "Any of it. The company, the money, the life you gave up to be here?" Naomi thought about it honestly. "I didn't give anything up. I just finally figured out what actually has value." "And what's that?" "This, you, Mia. Sunday dinners with your mother where she insults my cooking, helping with dinosaur homework, fighting about whose turn it is to take out the trash." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "The ordinary stuff, the real stuff." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the night settle around them. Naomi thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, desperate and lonely, and convinced that the only way to be loved was to hide who she was. That woman had built a lie so elaborate she'd almost destroyed the only real thing she'd ever found. But she'd also been brave enough to tear it all down, to confess, to fight for a second chance she hadn't deserved. People talked about wealth like it was money and power and influence, but Naomi had learned different. Real wealth was the little girl sleeping in the next room who called her Emma Naomi and brought her interesting rocks. Real wealth was the man beside her who'd chosen to trust her again despite every reason not to. Real wealth was Margaret slowly learning to accept her, was Grace's friendship, was Sarah running the company better than Naomi ever had, and Naomi being happy about it. Real wealth was being known and loved anyway. "I love you," she said quietly. "I know," Lucas replied. "I love you too." Inside the house, Mia called out that she'd had a nightmare about a T-Rex eating all her birthday cake. They went in together, Lucas scooping up his daughter, while Naomi rubbed her back and promised that T-Rexes were extinct and definitely couldn't eat cake. They climbed into Mia's small bed, all three of them squished together in a space meant for one, and stayed there until she fell back asleep. Even then, they didn't move. Just lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, marveling at the fact that this imperfect, complicated, beautiful thing they'd built was theirs. Outside, the city hummed with all its usual chaos. Somewhere, someone was chasing the kind of success Naomi used to worship. Somewhere, someone was sacrificing everything for power and money and the illusion of control. But here, in this small house with the wobbly table and the drawings on the walls and the people who'd taught her what love actually meant, Naomi had found something better. She'd found home. And that, she'd finally learned, was the only fortune that ever really mattered.